Super. Let's call the meeting to order and take roll.
Recording in progress.
Chair Eagleston Cheslowich,
Present.
Vice Chair Roman,
Present.
Board Member Pease,
Present.
Board Member Willis.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Are there any agenda changes?
There are no agenda changes.
Is there any public comment on items not on the agenda?
I have no request to speak.
Okay. Can start up with the staff report.
Yes, good
All right.
morning. We're ready for agenda item 1. I will share my screen. Okay. Good morning, Amy French, Chief Planning Official, joined here by Stephen Switzer, our Historic Preservation Planner. We have our big news, which was the council did adopt an ordinance, and that was in your packet, a little background on that, that reduced the number of HRB members to 5 members. It won't become effective till July, so we could, if the other members show up today, they're still welcome to join. But a quorum now is, as of July, will be 3 members. For right now, 4 is a quorum, and here we are. So we did receive 5 applications now. Don't know if it has anything to do with reducing the number of meetings to 1 meeting per month, but that is now what it says in the ordinance that was just adopted. The quorum, as I noted, was 3. The council will be interviewing the 5 members who applied on Monday, June 17th. So looking forward to that. We think that the interviews could be, in August, hopefully, early August, because the council does go on break after Tuesday. So if they do appoint members in August and 2 members, 2 board positions, then we could hold a special meeting. So even though the meetings will be reduced to 1 regular meeting per month, we still have, as a board, the option to have a second or a third special meeting every month. So the quarterly meetings, that's always an option because those are special meetings. Same with, the second meeting of the month would be August 22nd if you want to have it. And I would say that's a good idea if we actually have new members, because that would be a nice introduction to the new members. So having said that, does anyone have questions about this report? The meetings are July 11th and August 8th. So I guess plan your vacations. Okay. Our next item is to go along with that new ordinance, is this bylaws that would just reflect the ordinance. So showing 3 members as a quorum, showing monthly meeting, but no fewer than 4 meetings a year. And this is consistent with the Office of Historic Preservation's rules for CLG, Certified Local Government bodies. So is there any discussion or questions about, we're on item number 2, and I guess it's an item, so we need any comments from the public?
Is there any public comment on the proposed changes to the bylaws for consistency?
No, I have no public comment.
Are there any board comments? Okay.
So a vote and.
All right, I move that we accept the changes to the bylaws as written.
I second the motion.
Chair Eagleston Cheslowich,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roman,
Yes.
Board Member Pease,
Yes.
Board Member Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Next item.
That was efficient. So now we're on item number 3 on the agenda, and this is the recommendation on the Tailored Mills Act program. And I'll turn this over to Stephen.
All right, good morning. Historic Preservation Planner Stephen Schweitzer here. This should be agenda item 3, recommendation on the Tailored Mills Act program, or the continued discussion of the recommendation. Today, the HRB is requested to, 1, resume its discussion on the Tailored Mills Act program outline, attachment A of the staff report, and review the submitted letter with recommendations to City Council, which is included in attachment B of the staff report. Further, discuss the approach and recommendation to City Council on the Tailored Mills Act program. This could perhaps include a pilot program as detailed in the letter with a limited number of properties, as well as requesting a joint council session to establish the expectations and application reviews for the pilot program, and a primer on the current incentives and regulations on historic resources. And as detailed in the staff report, staff did consult with some historic preservation staff at other jurisdictions. Some of those included in the Bay, as well as others that had basic aid school districts. So the table here provided on the slide, as well as in the staff report, details some of those revenue loss limits that some of these other jurisdictions have enacted to combat some implications for resource impacts. And with that, I'm available for any further questions.
Before discussion, I want to make sure we invite public comment on this item.
I have no public comments.
Okay. If anybody present is interested in filling out a speaker card, that's also something that's available up here in the front. Yeah. Three. Yeah. All right.
One comment from
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for your time this morning. I'm here regarding the Mills Act. I have a property that I would love on University Avenue to be part of that pilot program if possible. And really open to having a discussion around that. And I know the other one property is the Squire House, which is a couple blocks, 2 houses down. And so would love to participate in anything. My home is a Category 1 nationally and locally, with one of the largest Tiffany stained glass windows in North America. So it's a good property for this type of program, I believe. So there was a comment and a question there.
Great. Can you tell us your name and the address of the property, just so we know?
Ben DeSico.
Okay.
And I'm at 860 University Avenue.
860.
It's the Peck Wilson home.
Great. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, and then any additional public comment?
No,
No,
just the
okay.
one.
All right, so I guess open it up to board discussion and, any additional questions.
So as far as signage in front of the house, that seems very last century to me. I'm just wondering if anybody looked at other alternatives. It seems like, the internet is certainly full of possibilities for that. And signage in front of the house just seems like an additional aesthetic distraction to me. I'm sure there's lovely ways to do it, but I don't suppose we would be dictating that. So I think that looking at alternatives would be a really good idea.
Chairperson Willis, can you point to which page in the pilot program that is listed on, called out on? the requirement for signage?
Well, should be able to.
Because that didn't jump out to me, but that's very interesting.
So packet page 21 on the introduction, tailored program summary. At the bottom of that paragraph, when it sets out the requirements, it says, and display an interpretive panel along the public right of way that is visible to the public. So I would suggest that we look at other ways to do that. I wouldn't think that was the best approach.
Yeah, I think especially for the pilot program in particular, I am not opposed to removing that because just as a pilot program, we're probably not going to have the resources to research and vote and get an adequate sign up. And I think in terms of the Squire House, what could be called the interpretive signage is a California historical landmark, which is like a whole separate process. So I actually agree that if we can list the history of the house on a City of Palo Alto webpage that has our Mills Act pilot program or something like that, and we can list it that way, that would be acceptable to me as an alternative.
Like, would adding this to the city website be problematic in any way as an alternative?
I think having a web page about the program is an excellent idea. It's just a matter of, the privacy of the, that's a worldwide
Yeah.
outreach.
Mhm. Maybe folks could choose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just would hate to see us create something that became a distraction instead of an asset.
100% agree, because
Okay.
these interpretive panels are very controversial at this time in what they should say and who they should recognize and why houses should be recognized.
I mean, would a requirement for more limited signage just saying the local inventory category or like local inventory listed or state or national listed if applicable? It could be like a smaller bronze plaque situation, but like much more limited than a full-on interpretive.
I could see it stamped in the sidewalk, but I think we should be careful with signage. I can think of Newcastle, Delaware has great signs, but it's definitely a part of the environment there. So I think that signage in and of itself needs to be looked at it as an aesthetic in the town in general, I guess. For
the
historic
purposes of the
properties.
pilot, do you think we could just, make, turn the interpretive panel into, some mechanism for notifying the public of the historic significance and just kind of leave it there?
I think in this situation, a web page on the Mills Act pilot program and the included houses and the history of the houses may meet our goals, because a big portion of the Mills Act pilot program is education, and that interpretive panel speaks to the education. I also don't really like having it in front of the house necessarily. It's kind of an eyesore unless it's going to be like California historical landmark, which, I mean, it fits at Squire House, but that thing's ancient too. So,
Well, I guess also ultimately because of the process for them to obtain a Mills Act contract, wouldn't their address become public record as part of those discussions anyway?
Yeah, it would be part of the public record, I guess. It's just, I don't know how people that go fishing for things, what concerns there might be by the property owner, we wouldn't want to add to their concerns. I was just brainstorming, thinking about what if there was a little QR code that was, on a fence or something, just very small, that people could go learn about the Mills Act program.
love that, because everybody has their phone when they're out walking these days. And yeah, we could point to that webpage and
Do we have any idea what other cities have done in that regard?
If I may, through the chair. Through my research, I don't know anything on signage on site, but I did notice that all of the jurisdictions that were detailed in the staff report, that they all had a web presence, as well as some went further and had a detailed list of all of the properties and the date that they were entered into, say, under contract. So a little bit further detail on the existing contracts. But to my knowledge, I didn't research further on exact signage on the property.
I mean, would everybody be okay with us just updating this to reflect a webpage option?
Yes.
That sounds.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think this is something, again, it being a pilot program, that we can consult with the pilot program owners and see how it's, be like, this is what we're proposing.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
you agree? Do you like it? Do you want to change it? You know, all of this is up for discussion.
Yeah, thank you. I just don't want to
Yeah.
bake it in
Yeah.
here.
No, it's a great catch. Thank you.
So my next, I have a question about the term should be a minimum period of 10 years on page 23. And I guess this is for you, Stephen or Amy. So we're talking about starting to phase it out after 5. That sounds incongruous to me. Am I misunderstanding?
If I may, through the chair. So that that term of period of 10 years that you're referencing, that is a state requirement. So in order to, be adherent to the California Government Code section that's detailed there, we would have to have a 10-year period. So if that answers your question.
Not totally, because
Okay.
During the 10-year period, that period. Maybe I'm just not understanding. So on page 24 of the packet. Where did I see this? This is accomplished by the city issuing a notice of non-renewal in the 5th year. So after which the remaining 10-year term of the contract occurs before the agreement for, I'm a little
I see what you're saying.
muddled.
The notice of non-renewal takes place in the 5th year, except for the term can be up to 15 years. So it should take place in the 10th year.
Well, I think is that the administrative workaround to get a 15-year contract, because you'd have to terminate it at 5. You can't do a 10 followed by a 5, but you can do a 5 followed by a 10. Is that?
I don't know.
I believe you would be correct on that.
Okay.
All this legalese, it's,
Okay, so during the 10-year phase-out period, can you tell me when the 10-year phase-out, so the 10-year phase-out period starts after the first 10 years? Or does it start after the notice of non-renewal? Because it seems to me that if you have a 10-year contract, it can't start phasing out in year 6. Do you see what I'm talking about? And so local Mills Act regulations, term limitations under A. I'm going to just read it in here so we all know what I'm talking about. So term limitations. The Mills Act contracts will have a minimum term of 10 years and a maximum term of 15. This is accomplished by the city issuing a notice of non-renewal in the 5th year of the agreement, after which the remaining 10-year term of the contract occurs before the agreement formally terminates. So the problem I'm questioning is the next sentence. During the 10-year phase-out period, the property tax benefits enjoyed by the Mills Act property gradually decrease until they reach the full regularly assessed value of the property at the end of the final year. I guess I should look at figure 1. Does figure 1 explain it?
yeah.
But see, to me, it seems like we're changing the terms of the contract in the 5th year. So because it needs, I guess, the state doesn't, it says it has to be a 10-year contract, but it doesn't say it can't phase out within that 10 years. It doesn't make, the lawyer in me is not liking this. So did you run this by the legal department?
We have not had discussions with legal, but we certainly can.
I think that is something we need to clarify.
I think the spirit here was to provide for a 15-year contract option, and I think this is the way it could be done. But that said, like, this whole thing is going to have to be looked at by legal at some point. So if there's an issue, you know, they'll be able to comment and we'll revise it accordingly.
That's correct. You know, it would get before any, anything is scheduled with the city council for a study session or anything like that, we would fully engage our legal department.
After board discussion, I can open it up for public comment again. Are there additional board comments?
So let me just run through mine, if you don't mind. So on page 25, when we're talking about a ranking system, and the first one is will result in more affordable housing units. And I got to say that brings the apartments, the Landing Chateau and the other on Forest to mind, which are great, but affordable is, I don't know what that word means in Palo Alto. So I'm just wondering if there's some other thing we need to, some other way to rephrase it. Do we have a city tax collector? I'm looking at the bottom of that same page on page 25. Cancellation fee shall be paid to the city tax collector. Is that something we have?
That might have been somebody on the committee cut and paste that from another Mills Act.
Yeah.
We know the county is the tax collection agency. So
Okay.
I mean, that would be easy to revise. You could just say shall be paid at such time and in such manner as the city shall prescribe.
Yeah, I'm just running through my head here. So on page 26, submittal date, applications will only be, very top of the page, applications will only be accepted and approved during the month of June. Can we change that to reviewed during the month of June? Because I think that we should accept them whenever they want to submit them and make it clear that we don't review them until June. And approval, I mean, I guess we need to distinguish between whether that's approval by the HRB or approval by council, because I don't think we can, I just think that is not going to happen. So I think if we just said applications will only be reviewed during the month of June, that would cover reality. Amy, do you know where I am?
I'm seeing that. I'm hearing your, thank
Okay.
you.
We could update it to say that applications will be accepted as on a rolling basis, but approved during the month of June. Just to make it clear that we can accept.
Well, I'm even questioning the approved, maybe approved by the HRB, approved by
Oh,
the city council.
Good point. Yeah.
I just think that's a little shaky. So rehabilitation and maintenance plans. Qualified, sort of the 2/3 of the way into the paragraph. Qualified rehabilitation and restoration work that commenced up to 2 years before the establishment of the contract may be indicated on the 10-year rehabilitation plan. And I think that maybe we want to do accepted as part of the 10-year rehabilitation plan. I mean, indicated on doesn't mean much to me. I don't know what. I think we might want to work on that wording. And once again, sidewalk displays on packet page 27, when we talk about the educational component, again, displaying the interpretive panel along the public right of way. And I had a note there, QR code in the sidewalk.
Yeah, we'll add some sort of webpage option.
Yeah, I just mean that's another place we should clean up before we send it off to council. I think that's what I got.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank
indulging
you.
me.
Anyone else with comments about the text?
I have a question for, I guess, Stephen and Amy. Would we have our legal counsel review this prior to being sent to council for review? Okay, I'm seeing nods, yes.
Yeah, the attorney's office is very engaged in reviewing any council staff reports, et cetera. So, and we would, following the HRB's action today, we would then schedule a meeting with our city attorney.
Excellent. I guess then moving on to the letter for reaching out to council about this. Are there comments about that or additional suggestions for kind of our next steps?
I just want to note for the benefit of the other council members that there are some comments and additions that I received to the letter as you currently see it that I will be making. So this is in no way a final draft. This is something for you to react to. And I received comments and additions from the chair. So this will be added.
I would make a statement that if any additional comments are from the board members, should be sent to staff, Stephen or myself, and then we can filter those back to Chair Roman, or sorry. Vice Chair
Or
Roman.
you can let me know any comments or concerns now as well. I brought my red pen, so I am ready to mark it up, whichever you choose.
And I think the hope is that perhaps we could look at a final draft at the next meeting and then make a decision about sending it to council at that point. And I don't know if legal would have had a chance to take a look at the,
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a month there
Yeah.
between meetings, so that's a possibility.
Okay. Would you like, yeah?
Just a question. I was wondering if you might want to also request for a joint session with council. I know our schedule is pretty tight, but after the break, maybe you can ask for a joint session with council.
Yeah, we had discussed what the next steps here would be, whether it is both forwarding the letter and the Mills Act to council in conjunction with the study session or study session to workshop and then forwarding everything. So that is something that we would like to leave with clarity on today. We'll make a motion on what the next steps of involvement in council will be.
I think one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the items in this letter is a request to council for a study session, right?
You know what, I don't think I said study session in so many words. I think I said approval to move forward with the Mills Act pilot program. And so again, we can adjust it as needed.
If I might add, there was a discussion about putting something on the council's work plan, that would be a request that would come from, staff to put this topic on the council's work plan for the coming fiscal year, which starts in July. But yeah, so that would be part of it.
I just want to add that the only reason I say joint study session is because if council has any questions regards to your letter and your request, HRB, then it would be great if you can answer and kind of give feedback to council of why the request, right? So I think that would be one good reason to have a joint session, but also it'll be interesting for council to be updated on all the activities that HRB has done. So it'll be a number of things, but mainly, for council to be able to ask the questions directly to you.
And does the request for a joint session get routed through a letter like this or through staff?
I think certainly hearing from a member of council today that is, I mean, we obviously staff has thought about that as a good option, but I think it's nice to hear from a member of council that this is maybe a preferred way to engage as far as allowing for dialogue in real time.
Okay.
So we can certainly, I'll mention this to our director.
Okay.
And see where we go from there.
Okay, good, yeah.
Another thing I had a question about was the property value limitations. And when we talk about 5 million for residential and 10 million for commercial, I think we need to define multifamily because I don't think that, I mean, I got to say Landing Chateau and its sister property on Forest are in my top of my head here. But I think they would fall more into commercial, but I would define those properties as residential. So I think we might need to work on our categories a little more. So that's on packet page 24 at the very bottom.
I wonder if you could, you're directing us, sorry, this is to page 24, the bottom. I'm looking for which item you're referring to.
Item C,
Okay.
property value limitations. It looks like it's in red, so it's an addition to,
Yep. So I guess in relation to, I heard Landing Chateau and its sister property. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but.
The apartment building across the street. Does somebody remember the name of it? No. It's embarrassing. It's right around the corner. But I can't come up with it off the top of my head. But they're two, I don't know, like 7-story apartment buildings. Why can't I come up with sorry, I'm just blanking. But, you know, obviously residential, but also from the 1930s and beautiful.
Okay, I think you're referring to, sorry to interrupt, I think you're referring to the white tall apartment building and not the smaller 2-story apartment building right across the street, right? So it's down a ways, Mr. Giovannota owns it, I believe, the white tall building there.
it's not Casa
Yes, something.
Madrone? Grande? What is it?
It's a Casa, yeah, Casa is the name of it.
It's the Art Deco large with the pool and the well in the back. That one? Yeah. I agree. That would be a good one to have on it. I also understand that these pre-contract assessed value limitations were probably conceived to limit the, oh, did you figure it out?
Casa Real.
Thank you, Casa Real.
Steven's on it.
Thank you, Steven. We're probably conceived to limit the impact to the schools and the amount of tax money that could be diverted. That said, if we are looking at having a limited program, I wonder if the council would consider an increase to these limits. If there's any appetite for that, just knowing the average price of a house in Palo Alto median is 3.5 million. The board, sorry, not council. Well, council will decide, but if the HRB has any thoughts on increasing those values.
So am I hearing the question with, we're still on item C on packet page 24, and it says 5 million or less for residential. And maybe that is suitable for single family, maybe not, but certainly isn't suitable for multifamily structures that Board Member Willis referred to. I'm sure they must be
Correct.
quite a bit more.
And it is ambiguous whether the multifamily would fall under the residential or the commercial limits. So maybe that's something we need to figure out first, but
Is that an area where legal could provide guidance?
Um,
Yeah.
Is it possible to consider excluding commercial properties that are not housing? I mean, it seems to me that that's where the biggest lack of incentives are here is for individual housing and multifamily housing. You pointed out some interesting buildings already. And I just remember after all this settled out, Ken Hayes came in with 3 big property owners and got, I'm all for it, but some pretty substantial economic benefits for his clients. Yet,
I think that's more, when we pick our pilot projects, I think that we will lean towards residential, but I don't know that we need to, I mean, I could see there being some commercial that we really did care about that, I mean, I'm thinking of, what was that Mexican restaurant that got demolished on El Camino? But that was sad.
I can,
Yeah,
Compadres.
Compadres was.
So I
Compadres,
don't think
yeah.
we should eliminate commercial. I think that we should consider it, but I do think it's probably, for the most part, a lower priority for us. But I can imagine there are properties that,
well, I think that warrants more discussion. Compadres turned into a much bigger project. Not that that's really relevant to the way you framed it, but I just think there's a really big imbalance here and it's not clear to the public and I'm not sure it's clear to the council. And after the experience we've been through, I would tend to want to maximize the ability of housing, let's put it that way, that is historic to benefit from this. And I think that affects even the notion of what they call naturally affordable housing.
I think that's something I think it warrants more discussion, as you said. It is something that if we decided to make a stance on it, we could include in the ranking
Mhm.
system.
Well, I would even consider raising the amount for the residential stuff. If the property warrants it, if it has merit, I don't know why that should be a limiting factor here. And anytime you put numbers like this, if this isn't reviewed for several more years, they're pretty much obsolete in a matter of time.
Okay. Are there any additional comments? Or shall we plan to agendize this at our next meeting with the completed letter and maybe some legal review and move forward with a recommendation for how we do our outreach to council? Does that sound good to everyone?
Well, between now and then, somebody's going to update the letter. You're going to do that. Are we going to have an opportunity just to send an email or through Amy?
Yes, so
Okay.
you can send it through Amy or Steven and they will get it back to me to update the letter as it currently is in the packet. And then once I make all the updates, going into next meeting, a revised version of the letter.
Okay, do you
will
want
be
to do
there.
anything to it before we consider it in that regard, or just take
No,
what's
you
here?
can, I'll amalgamate all the,
Okay,
yeah.
good, thanks.
And I also do want to open this back up for public comment at the end.
Just a couple comments. My family also has a property in Coronado, California, which, just for clarification, there's no designation on the house up front. It is on the local county website and Coronado website. That contract is actually under perpetuity. It was designated into 2000. The house was bought in 1998. Was built in 1888. And that contract is into perpetuity, believe it or not, at around $5,000 a year. So there are other contracts in the state of California that do run into perpetuity that I'm aware of. So just thought I would offer that.
Okay,
thank you. That's helpful.
Are there any other public comments?
No other
All
comments.
set. All right. Then,
Chair,
yes.
is it perhaps the public commenter would want to leave his contact information?
Yes,
for- You have
we
it?
have it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So then, moving on to the approval of the draft minutes from April 11th. Are there any comments or corrections?
I just had a question. It's not really a comment or a question, but when we talk about Queen Anne Free Classic, I hadn't heard that term before, Free Classic. Do we know what that means?
Which page is that on?
33.
Yeah,
Sorry, page
33. Nope. Okay. Have you guys heard that?
I wonder if that's, if the transcription
I know.
heard something.
I know, me too.
Should we strike free classic? Because I've never heard of that.
Anybody? Stephen?
So I'm not following what, can you specify where this is on page
One,
33?
Okay,
three,
so
four,
page-
five, six,
yeah.
7, 8. It's the 9th line on packet page 33. It says featuring stylistic elements of colonial revival and Queen Anne Free Classic, which I have.
We'll check to see, these are based on voice, I'm sure. If AI or whatever heard it that way, we'll check that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
If I may,
Yeah.
through the chair. So that is an actual architectural style. And I can read into the record here if you want some further clarification on that, since it may be not readily known. The Queen Anne Free Classic shares certain characteristics with relative, say, Queen Anne style, still containing most of the distinct and important features that puts in a class of its own. The main dominant style, say in Santa Barbara, it's at the turn of the century. It features a large porch and kind of a Americana feel towards it, almost in a way of a washed down Queen Anne style, if you will. So,
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Nice. Learned something new today.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Anything else? All right. Well, then I will move to accept the meeting minutes from the April 11th meeting.
A second.
And could we
Voice vote or?
just voice vote? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay. All right. Are there any updates to board business or comments, announcements? Nothing else?
Well, one thing that might be of interest to the board, we heard, and Stephen is looking it up right now, through the CPF organization, they have worked on a letter to oppose a ballot measure that's going through, not a ballot measure, a state legislation that has passed unanimously with no votes through one of the houses of the legislature in California. And it's concerning because it's, focused on, and probably Stephen is ready to say more about that because he is the one that forwarded it to me, and I forwarded it to our director. So go ahead.
all right, if I may. So this is Assembly Bill 2580. And that was just recently passed in the State Assembly on May 21st, and it's going to the Senate on June 18th. So just some brief highlights of that. AB 2580 would require that the housing element would include an analysis of historic preservation practices and the policies and an assessment of how the existing and proposed historic designations affect the local jurisdiction's ability to share the housing need. And further, it frames historic preservation as a constraint to affordable housing and housing development, and presumes that local historical preservation nominations and designations are used to block housing development. So it's, for the most part, opposed by a majority of the state's preservation foundations and any organization. So happy to share the opposition letter with the board and distribute that.
Will you please also send it to me,
I
the
shall.
liaison? Thank you.
I'll pile on to that. As I was reading through that letter, I noted that one of the points that was made was this bill is asking for cities to compile information that is already compiled each year for the CLGs, at least, about the activities of the prior year. And so this is kind of a duplication and inefficient government. So that was also a point that was made.
Wouldn't it just be rescinding that information? I mean, it seems like, I don't know. I don't know if the additional work is really an argument.
Yeah, it may not be additional work on the city's part to compile the information because we've already, well, we being CLGs, there are other, jurisdictions in the state that are not CLGs that have historic resources. So, I don't know. I'm just conveying, and we'll send you the letter directly so that you see what they're saying. I'm trying to summarize, probably badly.
Chair, I just want to also let the committee know that City Council, the city has a lobbyist, Townsend, and it would be great if you elevate this through staff to our deputy assistant manager, who is the direct contact with the lobbyists, and keep that top of mind for them so that they're overseeing this bill, and to also look at what other bills may be coming forward so that it is elevated to their attention. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I'll also.
Is there anything we need to do?
No,
Okay.
I'll note that I do attend once a month meetings with Townsend, and I've already alerted one of the Townsend staff that comes to Carly is her name, about this. The next time we meet though is after June 18th. I think this action by the state. So that's why I felt it an urgent matter to send it before our next meeting.
Do you know
Okay,
who is
thank
the
you.
author?
Yes, it's Wicks, and
Wicks. Okay, thank you.
I believe there is another assembly member as well that's the author of the bill.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
The other announcement, and I believe Veronica emailed the HRB, is there is some training coming up at the end of August. I believe it's like August 23rd and 24th or around then. That specifically, it's by a preservation group. Honestly, it's not CPF. I can't remember which one exactly it was, but it's $50 for members. We are not members, so it's $100 per person to take this training. But there were some very applicable sessions that I believe Veronica included in that email. I have let Veronica know that I would like to take those trainings. And if you can, we can work together to get registered. That would be great. But if anybody else is interested, let her know. And the trainings look very applicable and helpful. So.
Great, thank you.
Maybe she could resend the information too.
Okay, yeah. Anything else?
Nothing from staff.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, everyone.